Hello amazing viewers, you're welcome back to today's tutorial. We'll be sharing with you on how you can comfortably cover a large cake. By the end of this video, believe me, you can actually cover a large cake, a huge cake with fondant. So stay put to this video. If you're coming across my video for the first time, you are highly welcome. All right, this is a 12 inches cake, 4 layers, so it's a very large one. Right now I'm going to be sharing with you step by step on how to handle a large cake. So if you have never handled a large cake before, do not be afraid. Okay, I'm going to tell you how to easily handle it. So after today's tutorial, be warming up to collect a huge work. Do not be scared of it anymore. So throughout this video, I'm also going to be telling you the challenges I passed while making this cake. I'm going to be telling you the challenges which you might not even notice or see in this video. First, let me start with my buttercream. This is not just a pure buttercream. This is a ganache and a buttercream all together mixed. You know we have ganache buttercream, right? Yep. So this is it. Now I actually have I actually had problem with it. you would you would notice in this video that my cakes are sliding. My cakes layers are sliding. That is because the ganache buttercream was just sliding. It was just like a pure grease. It wasn't holding, it wasn't sticky, nothing at all. It was just sliding my cake all through. At first I didn't even notice it. Believe me, while I was even making this cake, I was just thinking maybe it's with time it's gonna hold. I never noticed it before it got to me that, ooh, this buttercream, this Ghana buttercream is not working the way you expected. I've already gotten to my venue where I stacked my cake and it was a bit late for me, understand? So, fine. So, always have this in mind. There is a fake ganache out there. So, when you are going for your ganache buying, plead with the sellers to please give you a better one, but I know how it is. Sometimes you will come across the fake one. But if you ever have been buying ganache and you've always bought the original one, please stick to that buyer. Stick to your customer and also tell your customer to stick to his or her supplier. Is very much important so that I don't encounter what I really encountered with this cake. So my luck with this cake was I never made a plan of using the ganache for the whole entire cake. I mean for my crumb coating, yes. That was actually the luck I had. My plan was just to make it buttercream ganache and then use it for my filling. Then I would use my normal buttercream for my crumb coating. So that was actually my savior. So at this point, I had no choice but to add is a dowel into the cake so that it could help me hold and bind the cakes together because they kept sliding, and all through this sliding it never got to me. It never endowed on my head, on my brain, that this ganache is not sticky at all. It's not working the way you expected. You know, something you've never encountered before. For you to actually come to the reality, it might take you little time. So that was actually what happened here. All right, enough of my ganache experience. Now, I want you to look and I want you to watch and see how I'm trimming my cake. So when it comes to cake trimming, I am not a professional. Yes, that is the truth. Be it a large cake, be it a smaller cake. So now, this large one, I know for sure that I am not a perfect pro when it comes to cake trimming. So I started on time. This cake, to deliver it by the following morning, be on the 8th of June. Yes, this is a last month cake. So I started as early as possible, around 10 p.m. Saturday night, being 7th of June. I started very early. I started trimming my cake at that time because I know that trimming would take my time. Then this is a three-step cake. So this 12 inches is just the first layer. Now trimming this cake took me time. That is one thing I want you to pick out in this video. There are certain areas you are not perfect when it comes to cake making. So do not beat yourself around. Just take your time and do it, and you will come out perfect. It's only you that knows the story. People watching you or people around who you deliver the cake doesn't even know the story, the sweat or the stress you went through. At the end of the day, all you want is a perfect delivery of work. That is all you want. So it took me time. It took me about for something minutes, if I'm not even mistaken, up to an hour trimming this cake. It took me a whole lot of time. I will trim, I go back, watch. I wanted to make sure that it is perfect. I go back, I watch till I got to my perfection, till I got to my satisfaction that the cake is standing right. All right, for my crumb coating, I use buttercream with cake crumbs. I add my cake crumbs, a little cake crumbs to my buttercream. So while adding your cake crumbs, be sure that you're not adding excess. You don't choke up the buttercream. So you turn, when you turn your buttercream, you sure that you still have that denseness. You still have that what is it called, fluffiness in it. Yes, but add as much as you can. Add enough cake crumbs, but do not choke up your buttercream. Make sure it is still fluffy enough to spread on your cake while you're crumb coating. So I have tried this a while. This was not actually my regular way of crumb coating. I use just a buttercream and crumb coat my cake. But after watching some series of people and see how they do theirs, I decided to try it. This is actually not the first time I'm trying it. I have been doing it for a long time, and I know most of you might not know the reason and the benefit of it. It helps to dry moisture. It dries moisture. I actually tested it and I so much like it. It dries moisture. When you cover your fondant on it, especially when you have a very good fondant recipe, your fondant will hardly sweat. That is the truth. Except your fondant is not a good one. You don't have a nice fondant recipe working for you. That's when you might encounter sweating with your cake. So this is a three-step cake, like I said, but I'm going to be crumb coating. I'm going to be trimming and crumb coating the 9 inches and the 6 inches cake off camera. Now the 12 inch is just what I want to teach with. The rest I did it off camera. So remember I told you I crumb coated the cake around 10 p.m. Saturday night. Now after the crumb coating, I left it on the table, and I also crumb coated the 9 inches cake and the 6 inches cake and left all on the table. By the time I was done with my trimming and crumb coating of the three cakes, it was around after 12 or so. So I left them on the table after crumb coating them, took care of myself and went to bed. That is one benefit of cake crumbs buttercream crumb coating, like using cake crumb buttercream to crumb coat your cake. That is the benefit of it. You can actually leave your cake outside the fridge. In fact, you don't even need to refrigerate it. That is a very, very important, the importance of it. You don't even need to refrigerate your cake. You can leave your cake 2 hours or 3 hours ahead before you come to wrap your cake. Okay, just make sure it is in a safe place where insects is not crawling on it or flies perching on it. Yes, so you see, even the time I covered it is even a perfect time. There's nothing like flies or insects around or so to perch on it. All right, for my fondant I used 2 kg. You know, when you're covering a cake, you need to know how many kgs of fondant is enough for a particular cake. Very, very much important. I know most of us don't even know. Now for these 12 inches, 4 layers, if you're making a 12 inches, 4 layers or 3 layers of cake, I would advise you make 2.5 kg of fondant. For me, I made 2 kg of fondant for this cake. It was a mistake, but watch and see how I was able to correct my mistake. When it comes to fondant making, please do not manage your fondant. Very much important. Don't manage your fondant. Now, to get your measurements, measurements of your fondant to wrap around your cake. If you want to know when you're rolling your fondant out, you want to know the exact length of fondant to measure and the height of fondant to measure, you can use a tailoring tape. Not you can, is a must. Use a tailoring tape to round your cake and know the measurement that roundness gives you. Then use a ruler to measure the height of your cake and know the exact height of your cake. Now, when it comes to those measurements, when I want to panel a cake, I actually roll my fondant higher. If you can see the amount of fondant spreading down the cake, you would know that I actually rolled my fondant higher, and even the ones flapping at the top and even wrapping around the cake is always more higher. Like my cake, I make everything. If I'm getting 26 inches for the roundness of the cake, I make sure I roll up to 30 inches. Yes, I can later wrap it and then slice out the excess. Then same thing with the height. When I have an exact amount of height, I make sure it is like 5 inches higher. Now, like I told you, I made a mistake of not mixing up to 2.5 kg of fondant, and I know that the 2 kg alone will not be enough for me to get the thickness of fondant rolling that I need. So what I did was I rolled out a thick white fondant, like the exact thickness of fondant I needed to use in covering the top of my cake. So I rolled it in a white fondant and used it to wrap the top of my cake. But that was not all. Just watch and see how I was able to finish up the cake and to make the cake finishing. So you can see there are challenges that people behind the scene doesn't even know that it's actually occurred. It's you and you alone that knows. It's only you that knows your story, and only you can tell it. So whenever you have challenges like this, whatever it takes for you to correct it, please do. Even if it means you mixing up a new fondant, you do. I was actually not happy that this actually happened, but it's an experience that will not occur again. So whenever I have 12 inches cake to make, be it 3 layers or 4 layers, I would know that I have to mix up 2.5 kg of fondant. I watched a video of a lady I'm following on YouTube, and I saw her where she delivered a wedding cake to the event venue, and her cake cracked. Her fondant cake cracked. She had to start mixing up fondant right there in the venue. I was like, how did she even know that it's going to happen? Oh, she had fondant. Man, is experience to learn from. Because me, I don't think I would have even have an option of where to amend that cake, because I wouldn't have even remembered I'm to go with fondant. So she going with fondant, I don't know, maybe she've had such experience before also, but I have learned as well. If I'm to deliver cake in a far place or a very important and a very big event, always have in mind to have an extra fondant, or have a mixed fondant. You don't even need to start mixing in the event center. Have an already mixed fondant. Yes, that was actually what I did the day I delivered this cake. I had an extra fondant that also was of a very big help to me. So now you actually see how I was able to wrap and to panel my cake, my huge 12 inches 4 layers cake. You see how I was able to panel it smoothly. So what I did next was to use my 9 inches cake pan to measure out my dowelling center. So I added a little fondant because to me it looked like the cake wasn't standing straight. So I added a little fondant to make it look straight. So I'm going to use my 9 inches cake pan to measure around the center of my cake to know where my dowelling rod will be sitting. In my next any other video when I'll be having a stacking cake, I'm going to be showing you how to perfectly stack your cake. That is not the aim of this video. So guys, you actually saw how I was able to panel this cake, right? You saw the time I took. So when I have a fondant cake to make, I start preparing on time and I take my time. Sometimes why we make huge mistakes with our cake is not taking our time to do it. For fondant, I make sure I make my fondant 4 days, 5 days, sometimes a week ahead. Yes, fondant is perfect to stay. It doesn't spoil. I don't even refrigerate my fondant. So I make my fondant ahead and then store them. Now for the coloring, I like to color my fondant 2 days ahead, a day or even 3 days ahead, the very day I will be needing it. That is how I make sure my fondant is ready. And for the baking, you can bake 5 days ahead. You can bake as long as you have a steady light where you stay. I don't even use preservatives for my cake. So when you stay in a place you have steady light, you can bake 5 days, 1 week ahead, and store in the fridge, in your refrigerator, and then remove it from the fridge 2 hours or 3 hours ahead of when you will be covering your cake, because you don't need over chilled cake for fondant cake. It will actually sweat. So now you see how I wrote a very thin blue fondant to cover up the top. So tell me who we know. Who we actually know how I covered my cake at the end? No one. So, but fortunately, guys, my phone went off. I was unable to finish up that blue layer covering. My phone went off. But this is our finishing work. I was even unable to make my video in a landscape. I totally forgot. This is my event venue. So this is where I took this final video. Though I encountered another challenge, my cake flipped in the car and fell, so the fondant just totally broke. If you can see my 9 inch, which is the middle cake, you will see it's not all that smooth, but then I was able to maneuver. Thank God I was having for a fondant with me. I was able to use to amend some few places. I was able to amend. Yes. So now that is because of the ganache. I stacked the 6 inch and the 9 inches together, so hoping that they will arrive safely to my event center. But the ganache was slippery, like I told you. I used the ganache to spread at the bottom of the 6 inch and then laid it on top of the 9 inch. So it disappointed me. But at the end of it, guys, this is my end result. I was able to still do the amendable amendment. Right, guys, see you in my next video. Bye bye.